I'm seeing a lot of migrants, Jason, and let me tell you, to put into perspective just how Brazil, but there are an influx of Chinese migrants. In fact, I mentioned that 450 number. In the past 3 days, we've eclipsed that number of migrants. So these migrants here in Hakumba is a situation they're having to deal with, along with last week they had more than 73 different countries.
You're looking live at the Fox News flight team over Chinese migrants trying to cross the southern border illegally. Griff Jenkins is live in Hakumba, California with the latest. Griff, what are you seeing down there?
That's right, Kelly. And to the Chinese migrants that we spoke with here in the San Diego sector, they have crossed over 7 different countries to reach U.S. soil. And in the past 2 days, we've encountered hundreds of Chinese migrants living in 2 makeshift camps here on the border in Hakumba Hot Springs in San Diego County. Now, this sector here in San Diego has seen an unusual surge in the crossings by Chinese migrants. In October, agents here apprehended over 4,000 Chinese nationals. Now, compared to that same month last fiscal year, when agents only apprehended 329 Chinese nationals, a major.
Migrants from China are now the fastest growing group of people entering the United States illegally from Mexico.
China?
Why are we seeing these growing numbers? Here's what we know.
New York?
Customs and Border Protection reported more than 24,000 Chinese migrant encounters at the southern border last fiscal year. In 2021, that number was just 450.
Did you just arrive here in the United States?
The migrants previously told News Nation reporters that they're escaping the Chinese Communist Party and plan to seek asylum in the United States.
向往美国的自由
Yearning for American freedom.
Some
powerful adversaries, and that is Beijing. Griff Jenkins has been live in Hakumba, California, all week, and these videos that you're getting, Griff, are really shocking.
Aid package. This legislation includes more than $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion in security assistance for Israel, and nearly $5 billion for the Indo-Pacific region, which is what we want to get into right now. House Speaker Mike Johnson, however, is warning that it will not be getting a vote in the chamber in the current form. Here's what Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh had to say about that yesterday. Watch.
I'm seeing a lot of migrants, Jason, and let me tell you, to put into perspective just how many Chinese are coming across the border, particularly in the San Diego area. In all of 2021, 450 total Chinese migrants crossed the entire border. This year, more than 20,000 in the last 4 months since the fiscal year began. Let me show you, though, they're not just from China. They're also from other countries like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil. But there are an influx of Chinese migrants. In fact, I mentioned that 450 number. In the past 3 days, we've eclipsed that number of migrants. So these migrants here in Hakumba, 60 miles east of San Diego, are waiting to be processed. Well, and, good morning, Dana. It's also shocking to Border Patrol officials who worry about things like national security. And you're right. Yesterday, we witnessed the largest group of Chinese nationals crossing our border illegally that I've ever seen. Take a look at some of this video we shot right here in this remote area in Hakumba, California, 60 miles east of San Diego proper. You got a group of 212. Just moments ago, I got the official number, 212 Chinese nationals. It's a near daily occurrence, and of the 20,000 Chinese nationals who have crossed our southern border, an unprecedented number since October 1st, when the fiscal year began, 90% of that 20,000 is coming right here to the San Diego sector. Officials at a loss for why specifically this area. That's just where the cartels are choosing. A year ago, they were sending most of the Chinese nationals to the RGV sector near McAllen, Texas, but that's tenfold now to what we're seeing. I asked one of the migrants why it is that they're coming to the U.S. The answer may shock you, Dana. Listen here. Why did you come?
Take money.
Money?
Yes.
For job?
Yes.
There's no job in China.
Maybe, I don't know.
Many of them will be released, but it's the national security aspect, particularly of the Chinese migrants, that concerns the officials because of the vetting process and knowing who they are. And the fact that we have so many that are single adult males. Now, if I just spin you around here 1 second this way, Thomas, you can see they're lining up the families and the women and children that'll go first when the vans come. But the vans are overloaded because so many migrants are coming, so they have to wait hours. And in fact, some of these migrants might even have to spend the night, depending on how many vans they have. We spoke to one Chinese migrant man, though, Jason, and I asked him why exactly it is that he's come to the U.S. The answer may shock you. Listen here. Why did you come?
Take money.
Money
Yes.
for job?
Yes.
There's no job in China.
If we don't get this supplemental from the House, that means no more PDA packages for Ukraine, no more USAI packages and authorities for Ukraine, and of course that puts at risk also what we're able to do in the Indo-Pacific. So our allies and our adversaries are watching to see whether the U.S. will continue to stand with Ukraine, to stand with Taiwan, to stand with Israel.
And what's so fascinating, because we've been covering this for more than 2 years, it was a heavy surge in Texas, but it's now come out west, Arizona, and here in the San Diego sector, particularly of the 20,000 I mentioned that came here, they have had more than 90% of Chinese migrants coming to this area, particularly in Jacumba. And that is a situation they're having to deal with. Along with last week, they had more than 73 different countries. I don't know what we've got this week, but it's definitely off the charts. Jason?
And how about the wide open border and its implications? Joining me right now is the Gatestone Institute senior fellow, author of The Coming Collapse of China and China is Going to War, Gordon Chang, back with me this morning. Gordon, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And I know you want to really get into specifically that money going to the Indo-Pacific. Tell me about that.
Spike. Now, check this video out. News Nation cameras were able to capture a massive group of Chinese nationals being processed by Border Patrol agents early Monday morning. The majority of them are single adult men, and because of the language barrier, processing Chinese migrants takes a longer time, and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed from the increase in illegal crossings here. Hundreds of Chinese migrants are now living in makeshift camps waiting to be processed. They say they want to get away from the Chinese Communist government and hope to be granted asylum in the U.S.
Fly to Ecuador, where no visa is needed, and then travel north. Others are flying into Tijuana Airport before being guided across the border by smugglers. The Chinese migrants are reportedly willing to pay cartels up to $35,000 for smuggling services. And for a lot of them, it pays off. More than 50% of Chinese asylum applications were granted in the 2023 fiscal year. That's much higher than the average across all nationalities, which is only 14%. So why are these migrants seeking asylum instead of trying to enter the U.S. legally with a visa? One possible reason is that the United States tightened visa restrictions for people from China over the last several years. In 2016, the U.S. issued 2.2 million temporary visas. In 2022, that number dropped to just 160,000.
They've always consistently had high numbers of asylum seekers. I think second to that is the processing times in the embassies, the U.S. embassies in China are taking so long. Also, it's getting harder for a lot of them to maybe get tourist visas. So some of those folks may have come here as students, tourists, everything like that before, and then ultimately decide, hey, I can't return to my country and seek asylum that way, versus now they can't even get into the U.S. that way. So maybe they're taking this very desperate measure to do the journey even from China.
We met Bam, who is from Vietnam. Her husband is from China. They arrived to the camps earlier Monday morning. The couple traveled through 7 different countries to reach U.S. soil. The Chinese migration is being fueled by Chinese social media apps like WeChat that instruct migrants on how to make the trip from China to the U.S. Majority of Chinese migrants here fly to Ecuador because the South American country does not require a travel visa from Chinese citizens. In the first 9 months of this year, over 15,000 Chinese migrants traveled through the dangerous Darien Gap jungle in Panama that is controlled by criminal groups. Now, law enforcement sources telling News Nation that once Chinese migrants arrive in Mexico, smugglers can make up to $35,000 per Chinese migrant smuggled.
They're creating a little mini army, and I'm wondering what the point is here. Are they trying to put people in place, I'm talking about communist China, so that when and if Donald Trump wins, they can create havoc in the streets and become saboteurs, starting wildfires and propaganda?
Absolutely. That lab in Reedley, California, the secret Chinese biological weapons facility, that can't be the only one that China has. And then you put together these images of recent Chinese migrants coming into the U.S. less than 3 weeks, taking target practice with sniper rifles and pistols. So really what we have here is the makings of a Chinese army, not in China, but in the United States itself. And the Biden administration is not tracking these people.
This is incredibly disturbing. And you said target. I know you just wrote a piece on this. If you are running from persecution, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a place to live and you want to be safe. You're not exactly going to go pick up a rifle and start doing target practice, are you?
No, and we're we're hearing over the last week, when we talked about this last, there are more and more reports of Chinese taking target practice in the U.S. So it's not just the ones that we saw in those images, it's also in Idaho.
Social media has also likely played a role in the border crossings, allowing potential migrants to better understand the process and see what the journey is like to enter the United States.
But the other issue, of course, is the border, as you've talked about, because across that border, we are seeing Chinese soldiers come across. And really what we're talking about is China putting together the infrastructure in the U.S. to attack the U.S. So clearly we've got to secure that border, or we're going to be fighting on our own soil.
Well, it's just incredible to me that this administration refuses to acknowledge all these Chinese nationals that are coming through the border.
And I can't overstress how much more difficult it is for Border Patrol agents to process and to vet Chinese nationals as opposed to those from Latin American countries. First, they don't speak the language. Few agents speak Mandarin. But more importantly, China doesn't share national security secrets with the U.S. So therefore, these single adult men, and that's what really stands out of these videos, these single adult men, we don't really know who they are, and we don't really have a way to vet them properly to find out who they specifically are and what their intentions are. At the end of the day, it's an alarming new trend. Chinese nationals are the fastest growing nationality amongst the migrants coming across the border, Dana.
Well, and I'm just going to add one point as we go to T's here, and that is that China will not accept back the migrants who have tried to cross here. So then we could be stuck with them unless that gets worked out. Griff Jenkins, great to have you. Thank you for your reporting.
Well, first of all, there are 3 compact states. The United States has a financial obligation to fund these compacts. This is Palau, Marshall Islands, Micronesia. These islands control Pacific. If China gets them, and China's really trying very hard, because it's saying to people in the islands, the U.S. is not funding its obligations, therefore you should ditch the U.S., go to China. That means China would have naval bases close to Hawaii, and that means we would not be able to get across the Pacific to Asia without encountering the Chinese.
So what you're saying is, look, the money should go, this supplemental package is important, particularly to ward off the dominance that we continue to see from communist China.
Right. And these compact states, it's $2.4 billion over 20 years.
To the U.S. border, and this Chinese migration, as well as the other migrants crossing illegally in this sector, is straining resources here for the county of San Diego. In a couple hours, Kelly, county officials here in San Diego will vote on whether the county will spend $3 million in taxpayer funds for migrant services.
It's unbelievable. The Wall Street Journal is out with a report titled "China's Shipyards Are Ready for a Protracted War. America's Aren't." They write this: while Chinese shipyards are thriving and primed to build at wartime rates, U.S. shipbuilding is in disarray. According to this report, Chinese military planners have leveraged the nation's shipbuilding empire to build up the world's largest navy. I've talked about this with General Jack Keane many times, who told me we are, bottom line, outgunned when it comes to the Navy in the U.S. versus the Chinese Navy.
Chinese migrants feared California Southern Border Customs and Border Protection (CBP) reports a substantial increase in Chinese migrants illegally crossing the southern border, with over 20,000 entering since October 1st. Raising concerns about national security, the San Diego sector has witnessed a staggering 500% rise in Chinese migrants compared to the previous year, becoming the fastest growing demographic of illegal entries in Jacumba near San Diego, where a small gap in the void facilitates crossings. Border Patrol has recorded a significant surge, surpassing the total encounters for all of fiscal year 2021 in just 48 hours. There are fears that some migrants may have ties to the Chinese Communist Party, prompting heightened national security scrutiny. CBP emphasizes the importance of scrutinizing the content of the influx beyond its scale. Brandon Judd, president of the National Border Patrol Council, underscores the unsettling prospect of large numbers of single adult male Chinese migrants given China's strained relations with the US. Reports suggest some migrants are using TikTok to learn border wall gaps and smuggling methods. The surge in Chinese migrants in California contrasts with a slowdown in Texas following increased security measures. January's migrant encounters totaled 176, 205, significantly lower than December's record 300,000. The House of Representatives voted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over border management concerns, while CBP seized 7,000 pounds of fentanyl in FY 2024 through January, emphasizing the agency's efforts in